All right, we're going to go live in 5, 4, 3.
Good evening and welcome to the study session of the City Council of the City of Moreno Valley. Moreno Valley Community Services District, City as successor agency for the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Moreno Valley, Moreno Valley Housing Authority, Moreno Valley Public Financing Authority, and the Board of Library Trustees. The City Council receives a separate stipend for CSD meetings. I now call this meeting to order on May 9th, 2023 at 6:03 p.m. The pledge will be led by... Would anyone care to?
I'll do it.
Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Delgado, and we don't have any invocation this evening. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Baca Santa Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Marcus.
Here.
Councilmember Bernard.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Delgado.
Here, ma'am. Thank you.
And Mayor Cabrera.
Here. Public comments on matters on the agenda only pursuant to the Brown Act. Public comments shall be limited to only those items on the study session agenda. Each person shall be allowed a total of 3 minutes to comment on each item on this study session agenda. The mayor may, however, reduce the total amount of time for all speakers to comment on any given item if there are a large number of speakers requesting to comment on the same item that may hinder the City Council's ability to complete its business. If a total time limit is placed on public comments for any given item, each person shall be provided with the same amount of time to comment. A reminder that the city is currently offering Spanish translation services if anyone is interested in this feature. La ciudad actualmente ofrece servicios de traducción al español. Si alguien está interesado, por favor, avísenos. Before we hear public comments this evening, I ask and encourage everyone participating to keep their comments respectful toward others, especially toward the individual speaking. I embrace and support the First Amendment right to free speech, including everyone's right to speak at this meeting and to share their views about issues concerning our city. But we can be more productive by being civil and respectful toward one another in this meeting. Finally, I ask the speakers bear in mind that comments will be limited for each speaker, and I encourage everyone to refrain from duplicating comments already made by others, other than to note that you agree or disagree with the prior comments. In order to preserve the meeting decorum, council and staff will not respond during public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
We have 3 requests to speak thus far, Mayor.
Okay. We can go ahead and call up the 3 speakers, please.
Okay, the first one is Gina Gianni, followed by Tom Gerald Sr., followed by Bob Palomares, and they're all speaking on item A1.
Is Gina Gianni here? Yes? Okay. Would you like to come up here to the microphone, and you will have 3 minutes for public comment on item A1.
Yeah, just speak into it. It's first time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, I had a serious issue when it comes to the commercial trucks. They have become extremely invasive when it comes to commercial residential neighborhoods. I recently just faced pretty much an 18-wheeler being parked in front of my house for about a week. I've been calling code enforcement every single day. I actually called city council as well. So it was removed just to see that the commercial truck is right back again, like 2 days later. Now it's parked in, I guess, the person's driveway. So I just wanted to reiterate that it had become a serious issue. So these commercial trucks try to sneak into the neighborhoods at night, over the weekends when they know nothing is really being done. Besides that, also, we have already issues with the air quality in Moreno Valley. I'm sure you're familiar with it because of all the warehouses and the diesel trucks. And it doesn't help that they're allowed to park in the neighborhoods. And I feel not enough is really being done to prevent them from parking in residential neighborhoods. So also, I just wanted to address and hope that in all your future endeavors that you would be a little bit more proactive. So you're allowing all the warehouses to be built. It would be awesome if you maybe would consider having a parking lot just for the commercial trucks. Possibly nowhere around the neighborhoods, but maybe within the warehouse area. So where they have an opportunity to park and are not becoming invasive and really taking over the neighborhoods. That's pretty much what I wanted to address. Thanks for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you would like to leave your contact information with staff, we'll make sure to follow up with you as well. Thank you.
The next speaker is Tom Gerald Sr., followed by Bob Palomares.
Tom Gerald Sr., speaking on behalf of myself, Mayor Cabrera, Mayor Pro Tem Delgado, members of the council, and staff, both here in the chamber watching at home. Thank you for the opportunity to address this. By the way, it's good to see new people here. I'm glad this nice lady came to share her thoughts, and so I hope she continues to follow through. I'm actually here in some ways for a bit of comic relief. I'm trying to think some of the long-running, they say professional wrestling is the longest-running thing on TV. And so this trucking parking issue is probably our longest-running political football. I think it started within months of the city incorporating what had happened. Housing was very affordable here, and a lot of independent truckers had moved out, and they had no place to park their truck in front of their house, and the neighbors would complain. And probably within definitely, it wasn't even a year, I think within 6 months, they were down there. Sometimes mobs of people would come, both for and against, and yelling and screaming and weeping and gnashing of teeth. So it was kind of, so prayerfully, and I'm not, Paul thinks it's a tough nut to crack. I just wanted to give you that historical perspective, so we'll see where we continue to go. One editorial comment, though, we missed many opportunities to intelligently use our redevelopment. We did some good things, but, and I was just earlier today saying, they could have used redevelopment funds to buy a property and, have a good truck lot where people could go and, be affordably priced. And so maybe they did, I don't know, but they, in any event, it's a long-running saga, so hopefully you can move the ball along. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
The next speaker is Bob Palomares.
Good evening, Council. One of the council meetings in the past, Ms. Bernard brought that up, that we need to look into parking for the truckers, because like this lady said, that I think they parked in front of her home, and I remember his first name is Seth. I don't remember his last name, but they were parking on the east end in front of his house, and they continued to do it. And, these are matters that they just get worse and worse, and Ms. Bernard brought it up, so I kind of stuck with me that she brought it up, because maybe she can carry the football on that. But another concern that I have, and it's regarding these things that maybe we'll be voting on, is that, there might be repercussions on some of these votes if we have a sitting council member that has vacated his seat since January. There could be legal matters down the road if we vote on some of these things, and it's 3-2, and he's one of the deciding votes to go for the project. And, this is in January that he's been, and he was registered in Murrieta, so the way I see it, that seat is gone.
Let's try to keep it to truck parking, please.
That concludes public comment, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that will bring us now to a report for item A1. And a reminder that we have 2 items on the agenda for today. The first one is commercial truck parking. Second one is Parks and Community Services Operations. And we will go with the first report from our Public Works Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. This item is a follow-up on commercial vehicle parking as requested by council at the March 7th council meeting. Information to be provided tonight are commercial vehicles definition, Municipal Code 12.38, commercial vehicle parking map, commercial vehicle parking utilization data, considerations for commercial vehicle parking areas, and then identify areas for review. Commercial vehicle defined by the California Vehicle Code Section 260 is a vehicle used or maintained for the transportation of persons for hire, compensation, or profit, or designed, used, or maintained primarily for the transportation of property, meeting the weight rating of 10,000 pounds. Municipal code sets forth locations where parking is not allowed and includes streets within a residential district, vacant non-residential property, on a non-residential property within 100 feet of a residential unit, within 150 feet of a driveway, among the others listed here. There are 2 areas within the city where commercial vehicles currently are allowed to park on city streets: the area to the south and west of City Hall, and then the southern industrial area. With regards to usage of available parking, there's been an increase in use since 2019, as shown on these tables. However, the on-street commercial vehicle parking is underutilized. So, in other words, there's a significant amount of space available that is not being used. Issues and concerns for commercial vehicle parking: we need to keep the trucks out of residential areas. We need to be considerate of adjacent land use and driveway locations, any potential impacts on street sweeping, impacts or potential damage on pavement. Need to keep roadway classification in mind, potential for complaints, whether that's our residential or commercial areas. And then finally, and it's also very important, we need access to designated truck routes. Based upon recent observations by city staff, the time restrictions that currently are in place on Veterans Way, Corporate Street, and Resource Way can be removed to allow parking throughout the day. Staff recommends taking this to the Traffic Safety Committee for review and approval. So that would help free up some additional time on our streets. As the mayor mentioned on March 7th, some streets were removed back in 2016. Those streets are in the southern industrial area. The issues at those locations included illegal dumping, loitering, double parking, vehicles being repaired on the street, and then the other violations as noted. So at the March 7th presentation to council, I reported that a comprehensive review of the entire city for possible new locations would be costly and take many months to complete. However, if there are specific streets or locations that council wishes to be reviewed, those costs would be controlled and the review would be much more timely. Any locations reviewed would be presented to the Traffic Safety Committee. Any locations recommended by the TSC would be brought back to council for review and approval. So this concludes my presentation, and city staff would appreciate any direction on streets or locations for review. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And we will go ahead and move into council discussion. Also, any questions for staff, and feel free to hit your speaker button here. I see Mayor Pro Tem Delgado.
Thank you, Michael, for that presentation. Municipal Code 1238, I think it was 1238. 12.38. Okay. So who decides what goes into that municipal code?
So staff would put together recommendations, and ultimately that's council's decision.
Items 1 through 10, we can change it however we decide.
Ultimately, that's council's choice.
Okay. And then you said that a lot of the streets and the spaces that are provided for them are not being used?
That's correct. Based upon observations both in 2019 and then more recently in March of this year, we're seeing a utilization rate of about 27% currently.
So would that indicate they're in the wrong area? Or what?
So you could certainly infer that it maybe is not convenient. But then convenience, again, we're bound by the fact that we can only locate it within certain areas. So we can't locate it in residential areas. We have to be mindful of driveways, the condition of the street, access to truck routes. So those are all kind of go into the mix of selecting where it makes sense.
And that makes sense. Your explanation makes sense. But I'm thinking I'm the truck guy and I want to park it in my driveway, or in front of my house, but I can't because of the municipal code.
Correct.
Then I can't park it in my driveway because it's too big. It won't fit.
Correct.
And the place that we provide is too far. I have to get my little Honda Accord, go to the thing and swap them out, and
Correct.
that whole mindset. So I see where it could be.
And just, this is pure anecdotal observation, but I have heard that it's inconvenient, therefore I'm not willing to go and park there.
That's what it sounds like, actually. So, because we provide them, right?
That's-
We provide,
that's
and they're not
correct.
full. So, but there's plenty of illegal parking going on, and then there's plenty of people driving trucks in our city. So we can come to that conclusion that it's not convenient for them. And then you talked about freeing up more time. So actually getting rid of the restrictions on time. So it's 6A to 6P right now.
Correct.
So we get rid of that, and they can just park there whenever.
24 hours a day, that's correct.
And that's
So it's available overnight, and
6
during
p.m.
daytime, it's restricted
okay.
currently.
Something to consider. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, you had mentioned about convenience. I've spoken to many truck drivers out here, and majority say, well, it's convenient, especially tow truck drivers. When they get a call in the middle of the night, they like to just go right out there, get in their truck, and leave. They don't want to drive halfway across town. And tow truck drivers, their trucks aren't as large as the big semi trucks, I understand. But at the same time, I do get complaints of tow truck drivers parking in the neighborhood. I had one just recently, a tow truck driver asked me, we're not any bigger than a trailer, a travel trailer or a motor home that people park in the streets. Well, they're not allowed to. 72 hours, they'll get cited or towed. So they said, well, I can park there 72 hours. I said, well, I don't advise you to do that, but there are designated streets. It's just too far to go. As for semi-trucks, I have no problem parking in the warehouse areas, because if they have a load, they drop off. Now they got to go find somewhere else to park their truck, when they can do it right there within that vicinity of the warehouse they're unloading. And that can go any part of the city. I don't want to see anything in the residential areas. You had mentioned it has to be next to a truck route. That's fine, because majority of your warehouses are by truck routes. So I don't see a problem where they would go off truck route to park somewhere else. But I just don't want to see them next to residential areas. And just like we have Skechers, they park out there, they're not supposed to, and I get complaints from residents that in the middle of the night, you can hear that motor, the engine going. Well, it's those little small freezer motors that they hear, and that noise echoes all the way down to the residents. But, how can you control something like that? I mean, if you're gonna make it a truck stop parking, how can you control that? So it's something we have to work with. But I have nothing against trucks parking in warehousing areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Bernard.
I know we were saying that they were underutilized, and I know some of my colleagues up here have said that it's because they're inconvenienced by them, or they're further distances. Are we sure that maybe they don't know where they are? So I always like to assume that maybe people aren't sure where some of these truck routes, these truck parking areas are.
So as part of our code enforcement, because we get calls obviously for trucks, other commercial vehicles in residential areas, as part of the notification process, the available parking map is provided. So They may not know it at the time that they've parked, but once they've been noticed, that map is provided. So at least they're made aware that this is available. And they make a choice to either use it or not.
Okay. And then also, my concern is just like Councilmember Marquez, I do get a lot of complaints because I live along one of the truck routes and how they come through our area. I do get a lot of complaints about where they're parking in residential areas. I know that our commercial enforcement is typically done during the day or early in the morning. Is there a way for us, and I know we are short trying to get some enforcements for that, is there a way for us to kind of mix it up and do it at night so that we can catch some of this parking that's happening? Because that's usually when I think it's happening the most.
I would have to defer to police in terms of their efforts, but I can address from a code enforcement standpoint. You're correct. The typical operations are during normal business hours. However, our code staff is aware that these problems, beyond just commercial vehicle parking, other aspects that they're required to enforce occur all times a day. And so they do make efforts to work after hours, come in early hours, do overnight type of operations. Try to do it on a regular basis to deter those activities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Banca Santa Cruz.
Hi, Mike. Regarding knowing where to park, do we have like no parking where it's typical for them to park? And can we put like a QR code with a link so that when you park there, and right away the map where you can park is readily available? Because you say the map is provided. How is it provided to them?
So as previously stated, when our code, at least through code, when they go out to notice a vehicle, improperly parked, they issue the notice, the citation, but also provide the map. So it's really a reactive measure where you're being proactive. So staff can certainly, I can talk to staff to see what we can do. We can coordinate between code and our transportation group that puts up the signs and see what we can come up with to be a little more proactive in identifying those areas being available.
And I did talk to some of our police volunteers at the appreciation dinner, and they were saying that a lot of the tickets that they issue are for illegal truck parking or, handicap parking in shopping centers. But one of the main issues that one of them got an award for the most tickets was noticing or ticketing trucks in areas where they aren't. So I'm very concerned also with safety. It's hard to pull out of a driveway and, with a truck in the way, you kind of have to listen to see if you hear a car coming in. With electric cars, it's, even harder to hear them now. So you're trying to just go for it sometimes when you have a truck blocking your exit from a street, especially the smaller residential streets. It's a big blind spot with trucks in the area. So I understand that we're giving out the citations for illegal parking. Is there a study showing us where we're finding a lot of illegal truck parking?
So as part of code's efforts, we keep the data and we generate what we call heat maps.
Right,
And so it pretty much tells us where this continues to occur over and over. And that way they know where to focus their attention to go out and make observations, issue citations.
I should have asked you before, but I'm barely asking. Do you have that heat map, or is that what was in the presentation of the streets that we should consider?
No, so in my apologies, the focus really wasn't on the illegal parking aspect. It was really more focused on where the legal parking is available. So, but if that's information that council would like to see, that certainly can be provided.
Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you. And just a couple questions and comments as well. Thank you again for the report and for putting in the work to go out there and collect all the data for the report. First question is, you mentioned that there was a study basically conducted to go out and assess the number of vehicles, commercial vehicles using the designated parking, and then also kind of the times more or less that they're using them. So I would assume, but defer to your expertise, that there are more trucks, more commercial vehicles in that parking at night than there are during the day, right? Because people are working and they're actually using the trucks.
Correct. I would say you're absolutely correct. Unfortunately, I don't have the data in front of me, but to verify. But I would agree with your assessment that overnight it would be used greater than during the daytime hours.
Okay, thank you. In regards to the time, I think that's definitely something, and you're kind of recommending that to extend the hours that we allow commercial vehicles to park there. I 100% agree with that. Now, I don't know if 24/7 is the answer, but I think if we go in that direction of making it 24 hours, 7 days a week, then we need to just watch that closely to make sure that, it isn't becoming an issue as well. But I think the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. is too restrictive for a lot of these commercial drivers. So 100% on board with extending that time window that we allow, for sure. As my colleagues mentioned, a lot of these commercial truck drivers and owners are our own residents. They're our constituents that live here in the city, and they need places to park their cars because they can't put it in their driveway. And as far as the locations, according to your study, the demand isn't there, right? There's surplus space, so there's no justification for expanding the parking at this moment. So that isn't really an issue. One of the other problems that does come up, however, is security, and I think my colleagues mentioned that as well. Unfortunately, some of these commercial vehicles getting vandalized or broken into, or things stolen from whether it's a tow truck or a semi truck, whatever that is. So I'm not sure when we look at our camera system or the flock safety system, how those are set up in coordination with our truck routes or with commercial parking. But in the future, if we do extend these camera systems, I think it would help a lot if we have some more eyes on the commercial parking, because it could be very expensive when some of these trucks get damaged or stolen from. And then the last comment, I'm not a truck driver myself, but from what I've heard from truck drivers and even our commercial enforcement team, these commercial drivers are supposed to be using specific navigation systems, apps or softwares, third-party softwares. So I'm not sure if staff communicates with these third-party providers or private sector companies at all, to make sure that they have the most up-to-date, truck routes, the most up-to-date commercial parking locations. If that's not something that we do, I hope that we can do that, reach out to the government relations or public affairs folks at these companies to just try to get that information out there and hopefully implemented into these softwares and into the apps. So just more of a comment. Hopefully that'll help us in the long run. So I don't have any other comments, any other questions. Does the council have any other questions or comments?
So I do. So I think in our city there's a problem, and I think we've all heard about the problem is there's no designated one area, lot maybe, for all these people to park, right? I think that's if they had their wish list, that's what they would want. But that's not feasible, right? That's what we talked about at the April 7th meeting. That's not feasible to do. So the problem is that they're parking in the neighborhoods. There's no good parking for them. So that's the neighborhoods. Then there's no good parking for the workers because they got tow trucks. They're dropping their trailer off, but they want to put their semi in front of their house. And then could be inconvenient for what are designated. So there's the problem. And then are we looking for a solution to put them in a lot? And if so, is it where and then the cost, right?
So Mayor Pro Tem, I think what we're looking for you from the council tonight is, number one, there's a staff recommendation on the existing truck parking adjacent to City Hall. We're looking at opening it for 24 hours. So I'm hearing a consensus on that. So we will pursue that and take that to the traffic subcommittee, and then if that's approved, we'll bring that back. I think the second item we're looking for, if there's any direction, because as Michael mentioned, if we do a comprehensive study, that's going to cost a lot of money and probably a long time to get that citywide comprehensive study done. So if there's consensus that you want to look at other locations that is non-residential and that is within the parameters of our existing code, then this is the time that you need to give us some sites you want us to explore and potentially take to the traffic committee. So that's what we're looking for tonight. If there's no consensus on expanding location, then let us know. Then the only thing we'll take is in regards to the existing truck location to expand the hours.
And just to add on to what Mayor Pro Tem just mentioned, and what Councilmember Marquez mentioned as well about existing industrial spaces, specifically their parking lots. And just from personal experience and observation, some, I won't say a lot or many, but at least some of these industrial buildings with their parking lots, a lot of those spaces are empty. You have your passenger vehicles for the employees that work at the buildings and all that, but it takes up a very small portion. A lot of that parking lot is usually empty. I know for sure on the south side, off of Heacock and Cremeria, but that's just one example. There are other buildings in other industrial parts of town where it's the same scenario, where you have a significant portion of the parking lots that sit empty. So would it be possible to reach out to some of these industrial developers or property owners and see if there's some kind of way to set up a model to allow commercial truck drivers to use their parking lots, some of those empty spaces, and lease out some of those spaces. It's a little bit more secure. They have cameras in their parking lots. Of course, they would have to be willing to do that. And that may require some changes to our code, but that could be another option to find more locations for commercial parking.
I think right now in the commercial parking, I think each of the business, the developers are leasing to a particular tenant. They, of course, would like to have secure parking for their business and for their employees as well as the trucks that are delivering. There are also some private properties that are being potentially developed for private allocation for other truck parking. Those are various sites all around going to and it's really dictated on some of the private market on whether or not those are going to be deemed leased up for truck parking or leased up for a particular business to take all the truck parking. So those are like any normal process of being worked on. With respect to your questions on, we could try, but it's probably going to be very difficult because, as I mentioned, once it's leased up to a particular business, they want to preserve that parking for their customers, for their trucks, and for their employees. So.
Yeah, and you brought up another important point too about private parking lots. And one of the things that I've seen is that you kind of touched on this as well, is that even if a private parking lot is built that allows for commercial vehicles, they could lease out all the spaces to like an Amazon. So your mom and pop operators have no say, no option, right? So it's completely leased out to one particular company, which could be a problem. So I wouldn't want to go so far as to force these private parking lots to require them to allow your small business owners to have a space, but at least prioritize them, have some kind of model set in place so that our local residents with businesses and the ones that own trucks have an opportunity at least, So a lot of different ideas, but hopefully those are things that you can implement as we go on. And Councilmember Marquez, do you have some more comments? Mm-hmm.
Just like on the east end up there by Skechers, behind the auto mall, a lot of truck drivers like to park there at night. I don't see a problem there. But what happens is that truck driver decides he wants to leave at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now the employees don't have any place to park. And that was one of the main concerns on that part of town. But there are some streets behind the auto center that have no parking at any time. Those streets can be utilized for overnight parking too. There's no traffic out there at night. They're away from homes. And that would be a good place for them to park overnight. Again, security. I mean, there's no street lights out there. They park at their own risk. We're not liable for theft or damage. But that's a good area to let them park overnight out there, and on weekends also. There's no residential homes around that area, so that's something to look at also.
So do I have consensus for the rest of council to look at that particular area, Michael, or is it something else?
And so if I may, I believe you're speaking of Prologis Way, which is on the south side of Eucalyptus, off to the east of the Auto Mall area. It's a cul-de-sac industrial collector, maybe 300 to 400 feet in length. I think that's the street you're referring to, sir.
Yes, that's one of the streets, and
So-
even on Eucalyptus too.
So we can definitely look at it. I do want to temper expectations. Keep in mind that Eucalyptus is not a truck route. We understand that we have warehouse uses along Eucalyptus, so they have the right to go and use Eucalyptus to the nearest truck route. So what we're potentially encouraging are our commercial vehicle drivers to be driving back and forth on a roadway that's not a truck route. So staff can take that as direction to investigate, and we can definitely report back. But I just wanted to temper expectations that there's the potential that we may find that for that reason, and maybe some others, that it may not work out.
Okay, I wasn't aware that it's not a truck route, but then
Correct.
again, it is for delivering goods. to
Correct.
Warehouses out there. Okay.
Right, so those deliveries are allowed per state vehicle code.
Okay. Well, it's something to look at, and, I mean, that would help on the east end of town, again, away from residential homes out there too, so.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea, at least to explore that option, but also hear your concern. So if you could look into that, I agree with that as well.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing is we've got at least one street now identified for some review, and then we can report back through the TSC, and it would be Prologis Way, south of Eucalyptus. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And I see Mayor Pro Tem here again.
I'm sorry. Every time you guys talk, I get another thought. So if I'm clear that we're just talking about voting on the times, but we really haven't solved our problem. And our problem is there's no one area, and I know where you guys are going, is it's very expensive. Who's going to pay for it? The liability of a parking lot, drainage, and the whole night striping, and who's allowed to park there. And I get that, but I think we might be moving in that direction, eventually moving in that direction, because the World Logistics Center is going to break ground this year, and I can probably assume that we're going to get a lot more trucking interest here in the city, and they're going to need somewhere to park. And I just think that I know that we can kind of kick the can down the road right now, but eventually we're going to have to come up with something as a city, maybe diff funds or put it in a developer's, say, a condition. I don't know. This is just spitballing, but I think eventually we're going to have to do something to prevent the neighborhoods from being overrun by the truckers that are moving here, and then provide adequate parking for our workers, such as the tow truck drivers and the guys that are just going to go pick up their load for the day and deliver it wherever they're going to deliver it and then come back home. I think we need to start thinking about that. And seriously, it's gonna be a hit for us as a city, but I think that if we do it right and you guys kind of start thinking on those lines of, hey, how can we get this done in the least impacted for our budget as possible? So, just a thought. Sorry.
Agree 100% with that.
Could I
as
make
well.
a quick comment?
Yes.
Thank you. So Mayor Pro Tem, what I'm about to say won't alleviate the existing conditions, so I wanted to acknowledge that up front. But as part of the World Logistics Center specific plan, the industrial collectors that will be constructed as part of that project will be connected to truck routes. It's being designed in a way that it funnels all the traffic either back to Gilman Springs or up to the freeway. Those industrial collectors will be designed and constructed to allow for truck parking to address this very, very topic. So I'm not saying it's the solution to address the immediate concern, but at least from a world logistics perspective, that was cooked into the design, if you will. So at least it's dealing with that specifically.
I'll say it again. You guys are way smarter than me.
Thank you. And see Councilmember Bernard here.
So I am glad to hear that they're going to include some type of truck parking, because I'm going where Mayor Pro Tem Delgado is going, is that there really does need to be a solution other than what this looks like now. Whether anyone likes the idea or agrees with it or not, this is where we have a lot of warehousing at. This is where we do have a lot of commercial drivers in the city of Moreno Valley. And I would personally like to, like he said, kind of explore it a little bit more. I know what they're going to do at World Logistics, but I would like to explore the concept of just getting a truck stop, maybe economic development, going out and seeing what they can do and seeing if they can get with a property owner that has enough space to do it. Because the reality also is the complaints are they're working on their trucks on the street. They can't work on their trucks during these hours. But a lot of the truck parking, that's where they're working on their trucks. That's where mechanics are. We have to deal with the reality of the situation that we have, and the situation that is going to continue to grow. We need to address these issues. So I'm glad we're addressing part of it, but I still want to make sure that we're addressing it and that truckers know that they can go somewhere, park their car, because a lot of it really is them feeling like their truck is safe, that it's secure, and truck parking lots offer a lot of that security for them when they are strictly for that purpose. So I do want us to really start to, in the future, explore that. But for everything that's going to be going to Traffic and Safety Commission, I think the consensus is to explore the idea of going at least going a little bit longer than the 12 hours, up to possibly 24 hours. We're going to look at the Prologis way, correct, as trying to figure out if that would help with some of this and alleviate it. And hopefully, maybe you need a few more people in code enforcement to kind of make it kind of a 24-hour operation so that we can get some of this handled so that they're not parking on the streets in the middle of the night or an 18-wheeler, because I have seen some parked on my street that have been there for a long time also. So I understand your pain, Ms. Gina. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any council members like to make any other comments or ask any further questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the second item, which is A2, the Parks and Community Services operations. And we have a report from Parks and Community Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I get started, I need to apologize. I'm a little under the weather and maybe losing my voice. So my presentation is very text heavy, so I may not be covering, I'll pick and choose what I cover so I can get through it. So have you seen a better looking group than this group of employees here? I beg to say that you haven't. Seriously though, this group that you see here has dedicated their life to providing opportunities for fun for our community, and I think that's a very important thing that we need in Moreno Valley. So, excuse me, for Parks and Community Services, we have currently have 3 divisions: Community Services, Facilities and Special Events, and Parks and Landscape Services. Community Services Division has 4 sections: Senior Services, Recreation, After-School Childcare, and Library Services. First one, Community Services programs of recreation. The recreation programs are offered to residents of all ages, and they administer contract classes, coordinate the Time for Tots program, coordinate specialty and summer camps for teens and youth, coordinate the Teen Spot to provide teens with digital access and online resources for personal and professional growth, and oversee the demonstration garden. And they do a great job. As you see, we offer over 3,600 programs throughout the year and serve over 4,000 people. Community Services, Senior Services and Library. Senior Services out at the Senior Center. I welcome you to come to the Senior Center. You'll see a wealth of activity. Throughout the year, they offer 720 programs and serve 6,700 residents. Library Services, we contract with a service provider for library services, and they are very, very active. It's much more than what some people think of as a library. It's just books. They provide so many services and programs to the community. As you see, they offer 693 programs and serve over 250,000 people. And then brings us to community services programs, childcare. This is covered by grant funds. First of all, we have a Child's Place. This is a year-round licensed childcare serving 142 students at 5 elementary schools in the Moreno Valley and Val Verde Unified School District. Also, our ACES program is expanded learning services to more than 4,000 students daily at 43 elementary and middle schools in the Moreno Valley and Val Verde Unified School District. That's a huge program. And then we have the 21st Century Community Learning Center grants, and this is our summer expanded learning program at the Edgemont Elementary School and serves approximately 125 students. And finally, we have community outreach. That is our Beautified Mobile program and our Community Day of Services, which we will be having one this coming Saturday. If you'd like to come out, it starts at 8 a.m. here in front of City Hall, and then we will be doing programs at Adrian Mitchell Park and Woodland Park. So as you see, that has 3 programs, and we have over 1,000 volunteers a year. Also under community outreach is our sponsorship program. And again, that's Beautified Mobile. We are expanding and offering sponsorship opportunities for our 4th of July celebration and our community special events so that we can expand those. Special events and facilities division, we have special events, facility rentals, and the sports and golf operations. Okay, and this is special events. This is one of our biggest and probably most visual section. We offer 14 different events throughout the year, and I won't go and read all these to you, but we serve over 30,000 people at those events. A couple that I'd like to highlight that are new was our Art and Food Truck Festival. And then we also offered this past spring an adult flashlight egg scramble. And then coming up this fall, we will be offering a color fun run. That'll be a family event, not a timed run. It's more, just a walk run where people can bring their strollers, their dogs, their kids. And if you choose to, you can go through different color stations and then you get blasted with colored powder. But you can choose to avoid that if you want to. Special events and facilities, again, we also have sports and facility rentals. Sports offers over 1,100 programs, 900 people served, and at the golf course, we have had over 12,366 golf rounds. And then facility rentals, in a typical year, we have about 878 facility rentals. Okay, parks and landscape services. Parks and landscape services covers park projects, park and golf course maintenance, and then landscape services. They have 35 employees. They maintain 43 sites, parks and facilities, 626 acres, 32.93 of landscaping along Juan Batista de Anza Trail, 11.68 miles of multi-use trails, the 16-acre golf course, and then they also oversee park improvements and, of course, maintenance. So these are just some figures to give you an idea of how much our department oversees. We have 33 parks, 32 athletic fields, 11 trails and greenways, 4 community centers, 3 libraries, 2 skate parks, a golf course, and an equestrian center. Our program measures. In recreation, we offer, as I mentioned, over 3,600 programs, 4,000 people served. Special events, 14 events, 30,000 served. Trails and greenways, 90 acres maintained. Parklands, 671 acres. And sports programs, a little over 1,100 and 900 served. And senior services, 720 programs and 6,700 served. volunteers and sponsors, 3 programs over 1,000 volunteers. And then again, I mentioned the library, all that they do, 693 programs and 250,000 served. We also provide staff support for the Parks and Community Services and Trails Advisory Committee, the Arts Commission, Library Commission, Senior Citizens Advisory Board, and the Emerging Leaders Council. We do all this with an operating budget of $17.5 million, and then additionally, our after-school programs, as I mentioned, are grant funded. That's an additional $10.3 million that is funded through grants. And then our current CIP budget is $16.1 million. In closing, I want to say quality parks and community services contribute to a positive community identity. They provide opportunities to improve your health, to connect with nature, to learn a new skill, to connect with others, to celebrate, and to improve your mental health. Few things impact the quality of life of a community as parks and community services do. We truly make a difference. That concludes my presentation, and I'm open for any accolades or questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was a good-looking group picture. I think you just started a little competition with all the other departments at City Hall, so careful what you ask for. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Jeremy. Would any council members like to share any thoughts, make any comments, or ask any questions? I see Mayor Pro Tem Delgado.
Excellent. Excellent presentation, Jeremy, and thank you for what you guys do. I do drive around the city, and see the parks are awesome, right? One thing that wasn't mentioned in there at all is a dog park. So we have one dog park. We have one dog park. We need more. So I've taken it, for me in District 2, one of the things that I want to do before I term out is get a dog park in District 2, but I know they're needed throughout the city. So something to think about as we move forward in the city and our city budget. And I know that the funding is limited for sure for what we want to do and continue to enhance our parks and community outreach is absolutely enormous. But I think that is talking about your last slide about quality of life and mental health. There's no way on the planet that you're going to go home and not smile at your dog wagging his tail saying hello, and then you take him out for a walk. So I think that it's something that would enhance the quality of life for everybody, and not just the folks in District 2, but throughout the city. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. I'd like to see one in every district, and I know my district is the only one with a dog park, but I'd like to see another one in kind of like the central area of District 2. So.
Thank you. Yeah, dog parks are definitely a need for the community, and right now we're going through the Parks and Community Services master planning process, and I have no doubt that that's going to rate very highly as a need for the community as well. So that'll definitely be a priority.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Banca Santa Cruz.
I also want a dog park. But also, I think it's important to think about the older kids, like maybe a skate park. I know we have a skate park in District 1, but it's small and it's just attached to a larger park that we already had. And the playgrounds that we're putting in, I'm trying to hit every park with my grandson, so we have wonderful equipment there, but it does make me think about the older kids who are skateboarding, and we want to make sure that we have things for people of all ages. I really like the workout equipment that they have down at Santiago Park, and that's really good. But yeah, I think we need more parks. I know we have a bunch of parks, and some of our parks are spectacular. I know because people in other cities talk about, I was in Moreno. Oh, where did you go? To the park. So we are, and a lot of our events are spectacular. What we're doing, adding in the Color Fun Run is a great idea. I like that we're trying to keep our community active. I would hope that we put in maybe some events around the trails, maybe a bike run or something to promote the fact that we have trails. I don't know if many people have it, are aware of our trails and how much progress we've made. in that. And also, I've brought it up before, but I know in the past, couple of decades ago, we did put together a Dodger Day, and we sold tickets at City Hall when we were on Cottonwood, and we all went down and picked up our tickets. Those were when we had hard tickets, you know, and we met up at Dodger Stadium, and my son's 30. I think he was 2 at that time. So it's been a while. Can we think about bringing it back? It would be nice to buy out a section and have a Buena Valley Day out of town, an away game, you know. But overall, your programming is, yeah. But the programming that we have is, I mean, the 4th of July parade, El Grito, the Juneteenth, our events are spectacular, and I appreciate all the work that you put into it. And even our Beautify Mobile, that beautiful group picture, I recognize a lot of the tan colored, the people dressed in tan from our Beautify Mobile. Your team, I don't know how you motivate your department, but the way they show up ready to work and have fun is just commendable. So I appreciate your leadership in the department and whatever you're doing to motivate your employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Bernard.
I know, everybody's gonna say this, but I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Delgado would like one centrally located. District 4 has none. So we are gonna have to spread the love for dog parks, because it is a constant conversation about getting a dog park. So, yeah, so I know. So dog parks are probably second behind expanding parks. So we probably need to have a dog park with a dog run in District 4. I know they would really like that. I really do want to say that your staff and your team, Jeremy, you especially, because I know a lot of these new ideas are things that you've done in other areas that you've come from. You are putting the fun in Parks and Rec. The Color Fun Run, I'm pretty sure many people are going to have fun with that. Like I said, the egg scramble, I would personally never do after I saw what happened that night, but a lot of people really enjoyed it. It was quite apocalyptic looking, but I get it. It was fine. I understand also that you guys deal with the library services, and I would like us to look into a different way of thinking about libraries. Not so much as a brick and mortar, but maybe library vending machines where they can order books. It can be in there. They can pick it up. There are other books in there. Also mobile library hotspots, things like that, so that we don't necessarily have to have a brick and mortar, but one that's mobile, one that communities can know is going to come to their community on this day or that day, so that they can access services from the library. Also, I want to look at being more inclusive. As the parks are being built for everything from sensory concerns to some of our residents and children that might have mobility issues. So making sure those things are included. And my last thing that I would really like us to, I'm sorry, 2 more things, is it gets extremely hot here. And so one complaint that I know that I have, because I have to take my kids out when the sun starts to go down, is that they cannot play in the parks because the equipment gets so hot and there's no shade covering over it. And I've seen parks where they're able to do that. So I would like to make sure that somehow, some way, we start to include that, because, I can't take them out every day at 8 o'clock at night when I tell them bedtime is 8:30. And the demo garden. I talked to some people that were helping and run the demo garden. I wanted to know, because I understand it's only open 2 days a week, if there's a way for us to expand it. Because they were saying that if they plant something on Thursday, they can't come back and check on it again till Tuesday. And they want to make sure that their plants are thriving and not dying. So they need a little bit more time out there. And also, if it can be open maybe 2 or 3 days, on 2 or 3 Saturdays, that would help some of our residents who like to garden but work. So they would be available to learn and do things on Saturday. Other than that, I appreciate everything Parks and Rec does. I appreciate the fun that you guys bring and the energy that you guys have at 7 a.m. in the morning without coffee. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I do have some comments as well, but before I share that, staff did inform me that there was one more request to speak for public comment. We are past that portion, but if it's okay with the council, there's one more. Is it one more public speaker, Madam Clerk?
One individual on both topics.
Okay. If it's okay with the council, we can reopen public comment and we can call up the speaker, please. Okay, there's consensus for that. If you'd like to go ahead and call up, I
Roy
think I know who it
Bleckert.
is. Okay, there you go. Come on up, come on up.
Perhaps you've heard of him.
Check out the county meeting this morning. That was the main topic of discussion. On the truck parking, and it's a lot of stuff. I'll take you back. The former Miss Baca that was up there in 2013 tried to get that implemented down in Edgemont to get it done at that particular time to solve this problem, and it never got done, along with all this other stuff. What you've done, the state of California has made it, between the CARB regulations and our city regulations, you've made it impossible for the independent trucker to survive. First, you tell him he can't have a truck, that if he does, it's got to cost $250,000, and then if he does buy it, he can't park it anywhere. Then if he does get it, he goes down to the Long Beach port, and they will not let him pick up a load. This is why we have the problems of that. Your portion of the problem, and I'm glad you guys are addressing it, but this is like problem number 9,432 that becomes a extreme priority because we don't take care of biz. You should be on this stuff 100%, getting it in. Maybe we'll make Moreno Valley the place where actually an independent trucker can survive. What a concept. I hope we'll look at that in the future, not only in this particular issue, but every other issue on top of that. Because if you do that, maybe we could turn our image around a little bit more. Flip up the A2 part. On the parks, that's a very, very, very sore subject. Because you're talking about dog parks. How about the quality of life of the dogs and the kitty cats and even the people in the barrio of Edgemont that got to drink substandard crappy water in their community and have done so for decades because we won't do anything about it. On top of that, I think 4 of you need to answer this question. You turned down $30 million and $30 million of improvements that could have fixed some of these problems, that could have addressed them, that could have put doggy parks in here or fixed the water system or rebuilt our roads. All of you know that we are going to suffer those negative impacts. That warehouse is getting built somewhere. That traffic is going to be there somewhere, and everything else. What we did is said, no, we don't want it. Now, no matter how good a picture the park staff takes, they're not miracle workers, they're not Jesus Christ. They can't fix those problems without green dollar bills. They can't provide doggy parks without the funding to build them. They cannot provide doggy parks and maintain them without a strong enough economic community to make that a sustainable enterprise, along with everything else. That's why you don't have that. That's the discussions we don't have. We don't have them here. We don't have them at the Moreno Valley Unified Crime Syndicate. We don't have them at the County Board of Supervisors. Go look at the comments today of Chuck Washington saying he doesn't want to have a debate with guess who? Now you don't want to see why the problem is? You don't want to have a debate. You don't want to have an honest discussion. You don't want to explain to the people exactly why things are happening. And then you wonder why they come up here in a state of confusion. We could make it right. We could make it work. A lot of people, even a lot of people over there, tried making it work. But the political process allows this to be hijacked. And who suffers? The quality of life of everyone in this community.
Thank you. So we will resume where we left off, which was council discussion, deliberation, and questions of staff. And we'll go ahead and go into mine unless there's any other requests. Just a couple comments here. Thank you again, Jeremy, for the presentation. And just to kind of reiterate some of my colleagues' comments as well, very well done on a lot of the new events as well that, we have the recurring events that are coming back, like the Mobile Movies, Mobile Rocks, and all these other programs, but the new ones especially, like the Egg Hunt and then the Color Run. I think those are, the Egg Hunt was very successful, and I'm sure the Color Run will be also very successful. So thank you for being innovative, you and your team for coming up with new ideas and putting those in place here. So far, it's going very well. A couple of things, the demonstration garden, I agree with Councilmember Bernard about expanding the hours for that. I know it's been around for a couple of years now, but I'm not sure how that would work logistically. Maybe someone at the teen spot, at that desk could help with giving access to people into the gate. I can't imagine it would be a lot of people on a daily basis, but maybe a couple people here and there. So I agree with looking at extending those hours for the demonstration garden. The master plan workshop, that one went really well also. Very informative, very interactive with the maps and everything. So I hope that your team got a lot of input from the community on that. And as far as a dog park, agree as well. I think we do need another dog park, and I know we've been trying to get grant funding, and we've tried to secure funding for it. But I think probably the best way for us to get one of those built is to put that together with a development, to get that as a concession from a developer, maybe a residential developer who most of the time already have to build parks as it is. Maybe we could just have them implement a dog park into one of their projects. What else here? Okay, so another thing that we've kind of talked about it, but there's a lot of demand for in the community is having some kind of recurring, like a monthly or bi-monthly art walk / vendor market. I won't say swap meet because that's a different type of event, but something similar to what the city of Riverside does. Palm Desert does it as well. They have a small section. It doesn't even require closing down a full street, right? So it doesn't necessarily require traffic control or additional personnel, but that's something that residents have been asking for consistently. Why don't we have something every month on a Friday or Saturday where we can go to enjoy live music and eat food from vendors and food trucks? We've kind of tried to do that, right, with some of our events, but it's not monthly like a lot of these other communities have. I would love to see that, and I know the community would flock to that as well, especially if it was on a weekend when folks are not working, when they're here in the city. And in the process, we also support our small businesses, those entrepreneurs that are trying to, they don't have the money to open a brick and mortar location, and they're trying to raise those funds to scale up. I think that's not only is it helpful for our small businesses and our entrepreneurs, but also an added amenity or event for our community as well. So would love to see something like that be implemented. And it doesn't have to be, my preference actually would be that it is not city run, but that the city does in some way sponsor it. For example, a special event permit, the city could cover the cost for that permit. It's a few $100s, right? And obviously the organizer still has to get certain paperwork submitted and some of the vendors have to have their permits and everything from the county as well. There's different layers to it, but my preference would be that we assist and sponsor a private operator, either on city property like the parking lot behind the amphitheater, or a piece of private property like the mall or a shopping center somewhere. So I know we can figure it out. Other cities have been able to do it, and it's very successful. And we have a lot of talent as well to be able to put that together. So would love to see that happen. Hopefully we can make that happen. And other than that, just wanted to mention the little free libraries. We've had some discussions at the staff level to figure out how we can build and expand our little free library system. We do have a couple, I think maybe a handful in the city, but that's something that there's ongoing discussions on, and we're exploring ways to fund it and to start installing those across the city. Hopefully that'll help with access to books and education as well. So that's really all that I have. But before we continue, are there any other comments, any other questions from the council? Councilmember Bernard?
So while I agree about having an art walk, I do want to caution us. I have a saying that once the genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to put it back in. So I just want to make sure that we understand that if we sponsor it through and we kind of guarantee the city will always sponsor, or the city will help cover the special permit, that this could lead to other groups coming to us and saying, well, you did it for them, what about us? And so I don't want to make it a blanket thing. Like if we come together and we're like, hey, we'll sponsor this one, but the next one you guys got, I don't want to make it a blanket thing, because I want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equally, and I don't want to open Pandora's box where every group is like, hey, you guys did it for this art walk and we want to have this food festival. Can you guys cover us for this? So that's the only thing. I just want to caution to that, just to make sure.
Definitely. Yeah, valid point. Thank you for that, council member. Any other council comments or questions before we continue? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on. Thank you again to staff for those reports. Very much appreciated. Thank you for putting the time and the effort into it. And that brings us to adjournment on the agenda. So we will go ahead and adjourn tonight's study session at 7:15 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.